Alter Ego has duped the Huda Beauty Empowered palette, so let's compare them today. This video is kindly sponsored by Alter Ego. I have been using their palettes for years now, and I do find that they create really good dupes of high-end palettes. Before we dive into this, I always like to do a little guessing game. So on one eye, I'm wearing the Mirage palette. On the other eye, I'm wearing the Empowered palette. So go ahead and take your guess now on which eye do you think is which. So here is the Huda Beauty Empowered palette, which is a gorgeous, kind of neutrally warm, smoky palette. I love the shades in this, and this palette retails for $69, whereas Alter Ego has created the Mirage palette, which retails for $24, and you can use my code Angela10 to save some money on top of that. So that is a pretty big price difference, and I feel like Alter Ego is great for the people who want one of those high-end color stories, but $69 is a lot for a palette, so if you want to get it at a cheaper price, Alter Ego is the way to go. So in this video, I'm going to compare both palettes side by side. We're going to do swatches of all the shades, and then I'm going to do this eye look so you can see how both palettes apply on the eyes. Let's take a quick look at these palettes side by side and get to swatching. Just looking at the layout of the two palettes side by side, I actually prefer how Alter Ego laid out these shades. I like how the palette kind of reads from light to dark. I personally love when the deepest shades in the palette are on the bottom right. Like, it just makes the most sense to me. Whereas in the Huda Beauty palette, these deeper shades are kind of scattered throughout. And then for the Alter Ego palette, I also like how the shimmers are kind of mostly in the center of the palette and they're surrounded by the matte shades. And I like how they place the two golds next to each other, because when I saw these golds in the Empowered palette, I was like, they look so similar, but seeing them side by side, you do kind of see those very subtle differences. But let's swatch out these shades and see how they compare. This is Clay from Alter Ego and Power from Huda. This is Wander from Alter Ego and Best Self from Huda. This is Cleopatra from Huda, and this one did swatch pretty crumbly, as you can see there. And then this is Bold Moves from Huda. This is one of my favorite shades in this palette. This is Odyssey from Alter Ego and Visionary from Huda. Ooh, I do see a pretty big difference with that swatch. I can see more of the coppery shift in the Huda Beauty version, whereas the one from Alter Ego just kind of looks a little bit more purple with a little bit of shimmer in it. We have Tomb from Alter Ego and Rebel from Huda. This is Nirvana from Alter Ego and Big Dreams from Huda. All right, there's the first row of shadows. I think shade-wise, they do look very, very similar, but I have to say, when I'm swatching the Huda Beauty side, they just feel a little bit more pigmented, and I feel like they do appear a little bit more pigmented in the swatch. But as always, I feel like the true test comes when you apply them on your eyes, and if that's kind of the case, like, you could just apply more of the Alter Ego shadow to get it to look like the Huda Beauty one. Let's move on to the next row. This is Bush from Alter Ego and Legacy from Huda. This is Heat from Alter Ego and Do It from Huda. I love this kind of coppery shade. Time for these gold shades. This is Carrot from Alter Ego and Charisma from Huda. I feel like Charisma just has like a little bit more oomph to it, is kind of how I would describe it. It just has a little bit more of a shimmery glow than the Alter Ego one. Next is Pyramid from Alter Ego. This one's pretty crumbly. And Limitless from Huda. That one's pretty crumbly too, so not a big deal there. Now we have Endless from Alter Ego and Confident from Huda. This is one of my favorite shades to really deepen up the looks with. And then Stone from Alter Ego and Winner from Huda. So again, for the second row of shadows, I think the shade matches are pretty spot on. I just feel like these Huda shimmers they pack a little bit more punch in the swatches. Moving on to the last row, we have Dunes from Alter Ego and Keep Going from Huda. That Alter Ego swatch felt very, very smooth, like kind of smoother than the other ones I've swatched so far. Next is Arid from Alter Ego and Get It from Huda. Now this next shade is kind of like a gel that's mixed with a powder eyeshadow. I don't really know how to describe this feeling, but it definitely is a little bit creamy. This is Sirocco from Alter Ego and Manifest It from Huda. So you can see how creamy these shadows are. I honestly don't think I've used this shade from the Empowered palette, but that looks pretty much identical across my arm. This is Conquer from Alter Ego and Courageous from Huda. Again, I don't know if I've used this shade from the Huda palette, but it almost looks like a multi-chrome on my arm. I feel like I'm seeing a bit of purple, green, and just like some kind of depth to it. Whereas the Alter Ego one, I feel like I'm just seeing more of a really, really deep purple shimmer. This one definitely has more like shift to it. Now we're moving on to the last two cream shadows. And I personally don't love this kind of formula in palettes. So this is Crypt from Alter Ego and Worthy from Huda. I'm just personally not a big fan of cream shadows, especially in palettes. I just don't really have much use for them. And then the last shade, which is the Black Cream. So this is Dusk from Alter Ego. Ooh, that's black. And then Purpose from Huda. Those two creams did feel really similar between the palettes. So that is what the last row of shadows look like. Again, I feel like Alter Ego really nailed the shades. Just the formula doesn't really pop as much as the Huda Beauty side, but let's see how it applies on the eyes. As always, I have two different sets of brushes I'll be using. I'm gonna use the Alter Ego palette on my left eye and the Huda Beauty palette on my right eye. Let's get started. From the Mirage palette, I'm gonna start with Tomb on a lid shader brush. And I'm gonna start by packing the shade into my crease. And I am keeping this mostly on the outer crease. Now from the Empowered palette, I'm going to take Rebel. And of course, I'm doing the same exact thing. One thing that I like about seeing Alter Ego's palettes and how they lay out the shades differently is that it really does help me come up with different color combos. Like, it's just helpful to see the shades laid out in different ways to help you come up with color combos. And I'm excited about the shades I'm going to use today. So I'm just really packing this shade on in my crease, and then I will blend out the edges. And I feel like so far these shades are looking pretty dang similar. Now from the Mirage palette, I'm going to take Dunes on a blending brush. This shade is also going to go in my crease, and it's going to help blend out the edges of that first shadow. Now I'm picking up more of that first shade and just blending that into my crease. I always like to layer my shadows, so I do tend to go back and forth a lot between the shades I'm using. I do feel like there is a little bit of that Tomb shade right here that's a little bit hard to blend out. Sometimes that can happen when I first start with that packing brush in the first shade because I'm like really layering down that shade, but let's see if it happens on this eye. For my other eye, I'm going to take Keep Going, and let's see what happens when I use that shade to blend out this one. I feel like it is happening a little bit on this eye too. I feel like there's definitely more on my left eye, but it's still happening on this one. But I do gotta say, I feel like the edges blended out a lot smoother on this eye compared to the Mirage palette. I just feel like these edges blended out a lot faster. So I'm gonna go back to this side, see if I can blend a little bit more. Okay, so that little bit of extra blending did help, but it's just kind of funny how both those sides are having the same patchiness. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm also not too concerned about that because I'm gonna be layering more shadows on top, so I'm hoping that'll kind of get hidden, but I feel like it's not too bad. That's just me being really picky. I really want to use this rose gold coppery shade, so this is the shade Heat. I'm gonna take that on the same packing brush, and that's gonna go all over my lid. This is a really pretty color. I don't know if I've really played with this shadow a lot. So I'm just packing that all over my lid, and then I like to do kind of a stamping motion once I get up into my crease to make sure it's kind of in there, but it's not going to be blended up too high. And then I like to go back to my blending brush and just do a very soft blend in the crease to soften out that shimmer. And then for my Huda Beauty side, I'm taking the shade Do It. I can feel the fallout falling onto my face right now. It's very like scattered on my face, but I definitely got more fallout on this side. I didn't really get any on the Alter Ego side. And then again, going back to my blending brush and just softly blending the edges. I feel like those two shimmers look really, really similar. Like, I can't really tell a difference between those shades on the lid. I want to add a little pop of gold to this look. So for my Alter Ego side, I'm just going to take a little bit of Carrot on my packing brush. And I'm just going to put that right in the center of my lid. just for a little pop, nothing crazy. This is totally giving me fall vibes right now though, and I love that. And then for the other eye, I'm taking Charisma. This Huda Beauty gold isn't building up as well as this one did, but I do want to point out I think this type of shade and formula is meant to be applied with your fingers. I don't want to use my fingers because I don't want a super harsh application, but I think I'm going to try it just because I want my eyes to look the same. Okay, so taking Charisma on my finger. See, much better. I mean, I kind of just wanted a soft wash of gold, but maybe we're doing lots of gold today. See how much more intense that is now? Okay, now I feel like I have to build up this eye. I'm just taking a little bit of this shade and I'm just very gently tapping it on my lid. I'm not even pressing that hard. At this point, the eyes are looking so similar, like I can't really tell any differences, just other than the fallout. I haven't brushed any fallout away, but I definitely have more on the Huda Beauty side than I do on the Alter Ego side. I went ahead and did my face makeup off camera, and now let's finish up the eyes. And I think I want to do something pretty smoky on the lower lash line. I'm going to start with the very first shade that I used on a pencil brush, and I'm going to run that across my entire lower lash line. I usually like to use the same shades that I used in my crease on my lower lash line. And then for the other side, I'm taking Rebel. Now from the Alter Ego palette, I'm going to take Endless on that same brush, and I'm using that to deepen up the lower lash line even more. Now I'm going to go back to my blending brush with nothing else on it and just kind of soften out that deeper shade. And then for my Huda Beauty side, I'm taking the shade Confident. And then again, just taking my blending brush and blending that out. It's kind of hard to tell if this shade is actually darker or if I just need to apply more on this eye, but right now this eye does look deeper and a little bit more purple, I would say, but I'm going to add more of that deep shade to this eye. Okay, I feel like that looks much better. Here's the final look at the eyeshadow before I pop on my mascara and lashes. I feel like the eyes look pretty dang even. And I do feel like that little bit of patchiness I was dealing with on both eyes is pretty much covered up by those shimmery shades. I went ahead and finished up my eyes with some mascara and lashes. And for my lashes, I'm wearing the Bright Lashes Flirt. And Flirt is just a little half lash on the outer corner right out there. I honestly cannot see a difference between my eyeshadow. It looks like I'm wearing the same exact palette. Like even if I'm being super nitpicky, I really can't find anything. Here is what the full face looks like. For my blush, I'm wearing this Flower Beauty blush in the shade Peach Primrose. And I did pop a little bit of this bareMinerals bronzer in Kiss of Copper on top because I kind of wanted to pull in those coppery tones from the eyes. And then on my lips, I'm wearing my Charlotte Tilbury lip liner in Iconic Nude with my Tower 28 lip gloss in Cashew. I gotta say, I am super happy with how my makeup looks and I'm not seeing any difference between my eyes. So while I feel like there were tiny differences between the swatches, whereas sometimes the Huda one seemed a little bit more pigmented, I would still say that the Mirage palette is a great dupe formula-wise because on the eyes, I cannot tell a difference. Again, if you want to check out the Alter Ego Mirage palette, I'll link it down below for you, and the code Angela10 will save you 10%. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.